What's up guys, I'm Hendrix and you're watching AR Airsoft. Today we're going to be covering kind of a dry topic, but it's kind of an important one. Airsoft batteries are the easiest and most simple way to improve your gun's performance and your rate of fire. So yeah, I'm going to be comparing the NiMh battery versus the LiPo battery. Let's get right into it. First with the NiMh. These were actually invented pretty early. These were invented in the 1960s. They were invented to replace the nickel-cadmium batteries, and actually NiMh stands for nickel metal hydrate. These were actually the first batteries to be used in electric airsoft guns, or AEGs. Before that, all the guns were springers, and these completely revolutionized airsoft. Airsoft would not be what it is today without NiMhs. And there's a lot of great things about NiMhs, including durability and speed, but there's also some downsides, and that's why the LiPo was introduced. Now, even though LiPo is widely considered better, I do recommend this for every single beginner. You just can't beat the safety of these batteries. LiPos, you have to worry about dropping your gun, dropping the batteries, or puncturing them, because that can lead to them swelling and breaking. NiMhs, you don't need to worry about that. There's only one charging port, and you just put them on the charger, and then put it in your gun, and you're ready to go. LiPos, it's a little bit more difficult, so I do not recommend them for beginners. It's mostly as something if you want to upgrade after you already have a NiMh, so that you can improve your performance even further. But yeah, NiMhs also last longer, probably around 4 hours, while LiPos only last around 2. This is because LiPos have higher energy output than NiMhs, which means that you'll get a higher rate of fire, but NiMhs will last longer and they'll have a lower rate of fire for more time.
Now before you roast me in the comments below, this can be reversed as well. It all depends on the battery you have, but generally this will be the case.
Now, you might be thinking from this point that NiMhs are overall the best, but I'm going to tell you some reasons why LiPo are still an option and NiMhs kind of are going down the scale. NiMhs do have a few cons, such as they're bulkier and bigger than LiPos, and they have a longer time to charge, and they are less effective, and they make your rate of fire slower than LiPos, which for competitive players is an issue. For beginners, it's really not. Also, if you're planning on playing Airsoft for a long time, you're going to want to replace your NiMhs every 2 to 3 years. And for beginners, that's really not an issue. But for long-time players, you want to take that in consideration. LiPos, you don't need to switch them out. And that's just something also to take into consideration when choosing NiMh or LiPo. Also, you want to fully drain your NiMhs. I wouldn't say every time, but maybe once a month, once every couple months, because it's just better for the battery health. And if you want it to last that full 2 or 3 years, you're going to want to be doing that. If you don't do that, it's only going to last around a year, but still, even for beginners, that's really a long time. Moving on to LiPos. LiPos were invented in 1991, and when they were invented, they didn't completely revolutionize airsoft like NiMhs did, but they made a pretty big improvement for the competitive players. The 11.1 LiPo especially had that high rate of fire that the professionals needed for that boost in their gameplay. There's two main LiPos that you're going to be getting, the 7.4 and the 11.1. The 7.4 is pretty much a NiMh battery without a lot of the cons. This was actually my first battery that I got, and this was recommended by the people at my local airsoft shop. I just recently upgraded to an 11.1 for that higher rate of fire. When I'm doing the battery comparison, I'm usually considering the 9.6 NiMh versus the 11.1 LiPo. The 7.4 LiPo is widely considered not a valuable option, but if you're a beginner, you're gonna want to be choosing between the 7.4 LiPo and the 9.6 NiMh. I would not go for the 11.1 when you're a beginner, just for that because it's much harder to use and you need more preparation time and more carefulness of it. The first pro for LiPos is that they're much, much smaller. And by much, much smaller, I don't mean visually that much. But it is pretty noticeable when you're putting it into a small crevice in your gun where you're supposed to hold your battery, and that's when the true size of LiPos comes into play. I don't actually have a NiMh right here. There it is. Alright, so as you can see, these look pretty much the same size. In fact, the NiMhs look smaller. But you also have to take into consideration these LiPos are about 3 times the capacity of NiMhs. So if you want to get the same capacity for each of them, the NiMh's probably going to be twice this big. So if you want to run NiMhs, you're going to have to get multiple of them for longer games if you're getting a higher voltage. So that's just also something you can take into consideration. Another pro of LiPos is that they perform better. They have a higher rate of fire, and you also, after the day or every couple months, you don't need to fully discharge them. In fact, LiPos you should not put all the way to 0. Don't drain them all the way, because that's actually kind of bad for the battery. Now, this is something to take into consideration, and for beginners, you don't want to have to worry about that kind of stuff. But it's also better because for beginners, you don't want to have to worry about having to drain your battery all the way every couple months. So as you can see, this is a 7.4 LiPo, and this is an 11.1. This one is 5200 milliamps an hour, and this one is 2500 milliamps an hour. And as you can see, this one looks like 1.5 bars, while this is 2. And this is just purely the design of it and the fact that it holds less. The reason we don't recommend LiPos for beginners is because of the fragileness and danger of them. As you can see, these look like the input ports from NiMhs, but these are the output ports. If you try to charge LiPos with these, they'll blow up, and that's very dangerous. That's why they have these little white pieces, and that's where you're supposed to charge it. Now, for my charger, it's not a big deal because it doesn't have a port to put these in. So you kind of have to use the white ones, so there's not much danger involved. But also, do not get your NiMh charger confused with your LiPo, because that's when danger happens. So unless you're getting both, and beginners usually don't get both, I think you're in the clear. But still, to be safe, I would still recommend NiMhs for beginners. Also, LiPos can, when punctured, could become bloated and can then be marked as dead. And when they're dead, you should not use them. You should go to a proper battery disposal and then buy a new one. So if you're getting out of an Airsoft game and you accidentally drop it, that's very bad news for a LiPo. While with a NiMh, there's not that danger of dropping it. I've given some very valid points for why you should choose NiMh or LiPo, but now it's time for the true head-to-head. LiPos and NiMhs have similar charge times, but NiMhs charge in around 1 hour and LiPos charge in around 2 hours. And this does differ between how many milliamps you're using. So this 5200 milliamp battery is going to charge a lot longer than a 2500. But you're also talking 1 or 2 hours, and then for longer ones, maybe 3 or 4. So between NiMhs and LiPos, it's not really going to matter from that 1 or 2 hour mark. Now for the fun part, what you've all been waiting for. I'm going to show you the true round per minute difference between these 3 batteries. Let's go outside. Okay, with the 9.6 NiMh, I'm getting around 15.7 rounds per second. And with the 7.4 LiPo, only around 9.9 or 9.7, so around 10 rounds per second. And the 11.1 LiPo is shooting around 16.7 rounds per second. Okay guys, we're back inside, and what we found was actually pretty shocking. This 9.6 NiMh only underperformed this 11.1 by 1 round per second. This was shooting around 17, this is shooting around 15.7, which is a 1.3 rounds per second difference, which really isn't that much. I was expecting this to be shooting around 25 and this to be shooting around 14 or 13. But when you're talking about batteries, there's 2 things that affect rate of fire. The voltage and then the C rating. This is a 15C and this is a 30C. This was shooting around double as fast this is. And that makes sense because this was a 30 and this was a 15. I don't know what the C rating of this was, but I would guess 25. So that's also something I did not mention, that even though the LiPos are generally quicker, you can get about the same rounds per minute output between a LiPo and a NiMh if you have around the same C rating. In conclusion, we've had a lot of surprising results. We did not expect the LiPos to perform around the same as the NiMhs, and hopefully this video will be helpful in your decision of LiPo versus NiMh. Peace out, guys.